This is the Microschool Minute, your weekly dose of microschooling news and events.
In this week's edition of the Microschool Minute, Tennessee's proposed audit of Memphis Shelby County schools isn't the only headline-making shift in education policy. Buried in the Senate's budget plan are changes that could reshape how school choice plays out across the state. Tucked inside the same legislative package is a provision to lift income caps for the Education Savings Account program in Shelby County. That means more families, regardless of income, could access public funds to cover private school tuition, homeschooling expenses, or even microschooling fees. At the same time, the bill aims to streamline the conversion of public schools into charters, potentially clearing a path for more agile, niche educational models to emerge in place of traditional campuses. Microschools often fall into regulatory gray areas, too small to be treated like private schools, but too personalized for traditional oversight. If ESAs are more widely acceptable and charter approvals loosen, that could fuel a surge in hybrid, parent-led, and educator-run microschool models, especially in districts where families feel underserved. This policy shift could also lead to new funding channels and legal recognition for microschools, as lawmakers begin to reimagine how public funds follow students. These smaller learning environments may gain a stronger foothold in Tennessee's evolving educational ecosystem. From Tennessee now to Texas, where the Texas legislature is on the brink of transforming how families access education. Senate Bill No. 2, designed to establish education savings account in the state, has now cleared the Texas House with significant amendments that reshape who benefits most. Now the ball is in the Senate's court. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is urging the Senate to adopt the House's revised version, potentially bypassing a lengthy conference committee process. If the Senate concurs, the bill will head straight to Governor Greg Abbott's desk, where it is expected to be signed into law swiftly. Key amendments introduced by the House prioritize access for low-income families, children with disabilities, as well as students attending failing public schools. These priorities help ensure that the initial $1 billion in ESA funds reach the families most in need while broadening the appeal of the program across party lines. For microschooling communities, this could also be a pivotal moment. The ability to access state funds up to $8,000 per student annually means more families could afford to leave traditional public schools for customized, learner-centered alternatives. Microschools are poised to become a leading option for beneficiaries of this new ESA program. But the window to prepare is short. As the legislative gears turn quickly, microschool operators should begin evaluating now how to align with the program's qualification criteria and prepare for an influx of interest from eligible families. The Ohio House's proposed budget for the fiscal year 2026 marks a dramatic shift away from a cost-based public school funding model, unraveling years of bipartisan efforts to bring stability to Ohio's education system. By abruptly halting the full implementation of the Fair School Funding Plan, lawmakers have signaled a return to politically driven allocations, leaving public schools underfunded and struggling to predict future budgets. Simultaneously, the budget channels hundreds of millions more in state dollars toward private school voucher programs, including a brand new education savings account for non-chartered, non-public schools, while undermining the long-term financial stability of public school districts through a controversial property tax refund. For microschools, homeschoolers, and families seeking personalized education models, this budget turmoil presents both risk and opportunities. On one hand, the instability of public funding could disrupt local partnerships and access to services. On the other hand, the expansion of ESA vouchers and homeschool tax credits helps to open new financial pathways for small, independent learning communities to thrive. As Ohio shifts further towards privatized education support, microschools stand to gain visibility and viability, but must also navigate a policy landscape that increasingly favors market-based education over public investment. Iowa's Education Savings Account program is entering its third year, with applications now open for the 2025 school year. This initiative allows eligible families to access state funds equivalent to public school per pupil spending, which can then be applied toward tuition and approved educational expenses as state-accredited private schools. Notably, the program has seen substantial growth, with nearly 28,000 students utilizing ESA funds this academic year alone. This expansion is especially impactful for microschools and home-based private schooling models. For the first time, all Iowa families are now eligible, regardless of prior school enrollment or income level. This opens new opportunities for families looking for flexible, personalized education options. Up next, the future of education in Missouri. The question is, what comes next? As Missouri edges closer to potentially funding private school vouchers with public dollars, education experts are watching closely and offering bold predictions. Microschools already on the rise nationwide are poised to flourish in Missouri if the Missouri Scholars expansion passes. Experts from the National Microschooling Center and EdChoice forecast that by 2028, as many as 1 in 10 Missouri students could be enrolled in an alternative learning environment like a microschool, hybrid homeschool, or custom learning pod. A recent report from Bellwether Education Partners points to flexibility, safety, and individual learning as driving forces behind this movement. And with expanded voucher eligibility, Missouri could become a national case study in what happens when public funds are redirected to support private schools that operate on a much smaller scale. This is no longer a fringe model, but a fast-growing solution for families who feel left behind by traditional systems, said Kelly Smith. But it needs to be done equitably, with accountability and access for all. In a pivotal 27-20 vote, the North Dakota Senate passed House Bill 1540, a contentious school choice measure that would introduce income-based education savings accounts for families opting out of public education. The bill sets a sliding scale of funding based on household income. Families earning less than 200% of the federal poverty line could receive up to $3,900. Those between 200 and 400% could receive up to $2,200, while households earning greater than 400% could receive $1,107. These funds, drawn from the state's per-pupil funding pool, can be used toward qualified educational expenses such as tuition, curriculum, and supplies at approved private institutions. While some legislatures applauded the bill as a long-overdue step toward empowering families with more education options, others raised concern about equity and district-level impact. It needs to be a true choice for the kids and the parents. It should be available for every kid in the state, regardless of where they're at, says Senator Don Schabel. The Senate's version of House Bill 1540 also tightens the scope. ESAs would only be available to students not currently enrolled in public or homeschool settings, a detail that has sparked debate among some lawmakers and parents alike. The bill now returns to the House for a vote of concurrence, and if passed, it heads to the governor's desk. A second, more comprehensive ESA proposal, Senate Bill 2400, remains under consideration in the House. On Friday, April 18th, a Utah judge ruled that the state's $100 million Utah Fits-All School voucher program violates the state's constitution. Designed as an education scholarship fund for private school and homeschooling families, the program allowed students not enrolled full-time in public schools to receive up to $8,000 for educational expenses. However, Judge Laura Scott determined that the publicly funded program fails to meet constitutional requirements for public educational spending, as outlined in Articles 10 and 13 of the Utah State Constitution. The decision comes after nearly a year of legal scrutiny sparked by a lawsuit from the Utah Education Association. The ruling directly impacts microschools and homeschool families, especially given that 80% of the voucher recipients were homeschooled. These small personalized education models had come to rely upon the Utah Fits-All funds to support curriculum, tutoring, and enrichment opportunities. With the program halted, families operating or considering microschools are now navigating a future without a major financial support system, making sustainability, equity, and innovation more difficult without alternative funding mechanisms. The city of Aurora, Illinois has officially initiated Aurora's Promise, its very own education savings account program that gives every kindergarten student a $50 head start toward post-secondary education. With an emphasis on equity, this initiative ensures that children, regardless of income or neighborhood, have access to future educational opportunities. The program is currently in pilot stages in East and West Aurora school districts, with plans to expand citywide. A $10 billion federal tax credit program is gaining momentum in Washington, D.C. This legislation would allow for individuals and corporations alike to donate to nonprofit scholarship funds, receiving tax breaks in return. The scholarships, in turn, would be distributed as vouchers, usable for private school tuition, homeschooling, microschools, and even virtual learning. Republicans hold a slim majority in the Senate, and the bill could pass this summer through budget reconciliation with just 51 votes. Key players are already lining up. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, the bill's architect, calls it a generational opportunity, while Representative Burgess Owens of Utah ties the proposal to declining test scores and the need for radical reform. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has publicly championed school choice as central to his education agenda. If successful, the measure would override long-standing resistance from Democratic states and teachers' unions, and usher in a new era of federally backed education freedom. The school choice movement is no longer a state-by-state experiment. It's now aiming for the entire country. In a controversial move, the Trump administration's draft fiscal 2026 budget proposes the complete elimination of the Head Start program, a long-standing federal initiative that supports nearly 800,000 low-income children through early childhood education, healthcare, and family services. The proposal has sparked alarm among education advocates and policymakers who warn that cutting the program would destabilize early learning opportunities for the country's most vulnerable populations. Additionally, the budget plan includes cuts to other essential services, such as the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program and the Community Services Block Grant, signaling a broader reduction in social safety nets. This proposed defunding has significant implications for the rise of microschools and alternative education paths. As traditional avenues like Head Start face potential collapse, microschools may become a critical refuge for families seeking consistent early education. This shift could further accelerate the decentralization of education, prompting more parents to explore customized, community-led schooling models that help to fill the void left by public program cuts. This week's Microschool Showcase goes to the St. Peter Claver School in Tampa, Florida, a cornerstone of African American education since 1894. The school is taking a bold step to preserve its legacy. Facing declining enrollment and changing neighborhood dynamics, the school is transitioning into a microschool model. With fewer than 100 students, the school is leveraging its naturally small size to deliver highly personalized learning experiences. This shift comes at a pivotal time when Florida laws have made it easier for private schools to adapt and innovate in their instructional environments. This transformation is not just about saving a school, but about redefining what education can look like for urban communities. Microschools like St. Peter Claver offer a promising future for families seeking affordable, personalized, and community-rooted education. If you know of a microschool or organization that deserves a shout-out, drop a line and let us know. Thank you for tuning in to the Microschool Minute, your weekly review of microschooling news and events. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you'd like to support us, consider leaving a review. Until next week, happy microschooling.